Hi, welcome back to the Harpreet Singh Show, and this is Tania's Truth Talk. Today I have a very interesting guest with an amazing story to tell you. Her name is Tsara Davis. She is a former gang affiliate, and she's been involved in a very challenging lifestyle, but she's turned her life around quite a bit. So let's welcome her to the show, Tsara.
Thanks, Tania.
I'm so glad that you're here. You and I go way back.
We do.
I too at one time was involved in drugs, and I was a gang affiliate, and your ex-boyfriend, as a matter of fact, was a friend of mine, and he was in a gang. I now see him in prison, and it's so ironic that how we've come back together. I mean, can you share a little bit about what your life was like growing up and
yeah,
the
definitely.
things you've been involved in?
Well, I say from day one, you know, I've had a rough lifestyle. I wasn't one of those people that had a good lifestyle then turned bad. I was actually grew up in an adopted family. You know, my birth mother, she's on East Hastings. I grew up in an adopted home with an alcoholic father, went through abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, never knew what was happening with my mom and my brother because of all the abuse and stuff. And when I turned 13, that's when I started to take off into this lifestyle. And by the time I was 17, I was all in. You know, I was living in shacks with dangerous people.
I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, you were. There were some very rough people that you were hanging around.
And I had nowhere to go. I had no home, no job, no nothing. So I would just live at these people's houses, and I would make it work.
Yes.
Do whatever it takes just to try
to eat for that day and have a place to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And you know, you were involved in some criminal activity, fraud. You were dealing drugs. You were a drug dealer. You were a gang affiliate. That sounds pretty bad.
Yeah,
but
it was
you
pretty
were
crazy.
all of those things. Sitting here looking at you today, you would never imagine. You know, so your mother now is on East Hastings, and you were given up for adoption.
My birth mother,
So you were kind of had a very challenging lifestyle from the get-go.
Yeah.
So here you were, 17 years old, and you were basically living on the streets, and in a lot of the times, the case you were moving around from crack shack to crack shack. You were smoking crystal meth?
Yeah.
Crack cocaine?
Not crack.
Crack? No?
No.
Okay,
it was crystal meth. You know, I was using GHB. I was drinking all the time.
The GHB is a date rape drug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically just whatever I could do to numb my body and to not live physically in this life, I would do.
Now, would you say, because I have a lot of people that I come across, and they say, you know, because it's ironic how you mentioned that I grew up in this lifestyle that basically, you know, you were damned from the get-go. And so would you say, in a lot of other cases, people will say that they went to the streets because it was kind of that's where the other misfits were, so that's where you felt like you belonged, and you made your own little family with these people, and you felt accepted? Yeah,
definitely, right. And then everyone else out there is doing the same thing as everyone else, and you know,
so
it's that routine
your
lifestyle.
So messed up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, you know, it's so important, you know, it's that you say this, because I keep saying it. It all starts in the home. It all starts.
It does.
In the
It really
home,
does.
Because when children are raised like that, the statistics show that 2/3 of their children end up doing the same thing and being career criminals. So literally, what does that say for our future generations? Do we want them to end up in prison and have our tax dollars paying for that? So you were just one of those statistics.
I was.
And you know, the people that you were hanging around with, I know many of them now are dead. They're murdered. They've drug overdosed, or they're in prison doing life sentences, including your ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, and that's the reality of that lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what type of things were you encountering,
on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, on a day-to-day basis in your survival.
Well, it starts with waking up not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing if I still have any of my stuff, what kind of fights are going to break out.
In the place?
Yeah, and wherever I'd wake up. Okay. And just completely not knowing, you know, there's lots of violence in that world.
Yes.
Lots of, worrying about how am I going to make money today, and, who am I going to make it with, and just, how
am I going to get my hustle on?
Yeah.
Get my money for dope.
Yeah, for dope.
The daily grind.
Yeah. And and just like hating everybody around me, and like having to like live there with like that mask on, like that everything's okay. And
you know, I sit here across from you today, and the Tsara that I know today is this precious, meek, angelic little Tsara, and I always call you, you're my little angel.
Yeah.
You know, but the Tsara that I knew before was, don't mess with me or I'm gonna mess with you. And you were a tough girl. You were like straight up gangster. You really were.
And that's what it feels like out there, like how we have to be,
survive.
because we don't want to, like, I didn't want to let my walls down. I was afraid, and I
Your
didn't
gloves
even
were up all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like waking up in fear, but acting like you're not in fear.
So you're always like sleeping with one eye open and stuff, you know, worrying
Yeah.
who's going to come and do something to me when I'm sleeping.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
If, like you say, if my stuff's going to be gone, or
Yeah.
you're a drug dealer, if my dope's going to be gone and now I got to
Yeah.
pay him. So you were always like living on edge.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that it was almost like you were self-medicating.
Yeah, you know,
Explain that.
Well, for me, like, the more drugs I did, especially the GHB, it would just, I could fall asleep, like, on the bus even, and, like, anywhere I went, it just numbed it, and, like, it was literally to the point where when I woke up, I had to use crystal meth, but if I wanted to laugh at all, like, I had to use GHB, and I had to drink just to feel evened out. And,
Yes.
you know, after, like, having cleaned up from a while, I could totally see that it's all, I was just so addicted to drugs, right? That wasn't a real reality. That was just being addicted to drugs.
So would you say that, you know, to other kids who, you know, who could possibly be watching, that in your experience it was like a self-medication because you weren't able to deal with the emotional pain and stress of what's going to happen tomorrow, that it's almost like the drinking and the drugs gave you like a liquid courage?
Yeah, definitely.
Or, you know, masked a lot of the stuff and made you into someone more inferior than you thought you were?
Yeah, it all plays a role, you know, like the more drugs I did, the more I changed as a person. The more I hung around with those people, the more I changed into a worse person. And
you started, from what I understand, when you first started, you started out with just simple things like smoking, doing marijuana and stuff. And I say
at school.
So often, marijuana is a gateway drug. Do not think that you're just going to be smoking pot and it's just going to be that. It's a gateway drug, and it led into more things that were quite heavy. You were doing ecstasy, crystal meth,
GHB, all within a couple years.
All within a couple of years, eh? So what would you say to young viewers that are watching when they think just blazing on a blunt, a joint of marijuana is, it's casual?
You know, it all leads, like, it leads to just smoking that joint. It's going to lead to the dope house. And at the dope house, that's where you're going to find the other people. And hanging out with those people is where the other shady people come in. And it all spirals out from there and branches off and leads into that lifestyle.
And these people that are in these drug houses, they're preying on young,
basically,
beautiful, attractive, innocent, vulnerable girls like you. And that's exactly what happened in your case, because the drug dealers come along, you're a young, pretty girl, and you're seeing all the money, the flashy
chains,
cars, the gold chains, and you were smitten by that. And this man gave you attention. Yeah. And basically, that's how you got into that.
And I was even covered with expensive jewelry numerous times by guys, you know, like diamond rings, gold chains, like hold on to my money. You know, and like all that stuff.
Yeah. What would you say to young girls that are, you know, in high school, getting out of high school, that would see a boy that would come up to them in a flashy car, gold chains, and, you know, the stereotypical in the game ball and drug dealer that they tend to fall for? Some of these people, like, what would you say to warn them against that?
Like, just don't go in the car. Like, the simplest thing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't lead anywhere good, and just to that there's so many other good people out there. Like, you don't need to walk down that path, you know, like, there's this saying, like, a wise person learns from their own, or a smart person learns from their own mistakes, a wise person learns from others, right? And that's a great reason we can be here, to show people, like, it leads nowhere, you know. I ended up in jail with no life, like, hating myself, hating everyone around me, and it doesn't last. That lifestyle doesn't last.
We're going to have to get into this right after the commercial break, because this is just so interesting at how your life just took a pivotal turn from that point on. We're here with Tsara Davis. She's a former gang affiliate, drug dealer, drug user, and she's totally turned her life around. So please tune in after the commercial break for more of her inspirational story on Tania's Truth Talk on the Harpreet Singh Show.